afternoon. My name is Christina Porter. I'd like to ask you all if you've ever wondered what it would be like to have a parasite living inside you. This may sound like a crazy notion, but the facts are that it's very easy to contract different parasites through everyday life and common activities. Many of these parasites can cause death or extreme damage to your body. I've always had a fascination for microbiology, so my main focus of interest was centered around the study of bacteria and parasites. Due to this interest, I was intrigued by a television show that I stumbled upon one day. After hours of cringing and not being able to look away, I have found a new knowledge of many parasites that I never knew existed and the effects on humans that I would have never thought possible. Alright, many of you may have seen this show called Monsters Inside Me. It regularly broadcasts on Animal Planet. The show is based on actual accounts of individuals living in the U.S. that have contracted these parasites in the United States or abroad. The show is hosted by professional biologist Dan Riskin, who is an expert on parasites and human contraction of parasites. All episodes include the actual doctors who encountered the individual cases and diagnosed their patients. For anyone that is unsure of what a parasite is, a parasite, as defined by dictionary.com, is an organism that lives on or in an organism of another species, known as the host, from the body of which it obtains nutriment. I have chosen 3 harmful parasites that particularly interested me to inform you of. The first being the human botfly in its larval form. The botfly is found in many different parts of the world, but the cases that I've studied indicate that Costa Rica and Belize are common grounds for the unfortunate tourists that come across this parasite. Let's show you a picture here. This is actual human flesh with a botfly larva. The flies will carry the botfly larvae, and when they reach the skin, the heat of your skin will make the egg hatch, and they'll dig down and burrow themselves in. We actually had a case on Monsters Inside Me where his name was Aaron Dallas from Colorado. He had taken a trip to Belize, and he contracted 5 larvae in his head. He had 5 unusual bumps on his head. He couldn't figure out what they were. He went to the doctor. They couldn't figure out what it was either. They told him maybe he had shingles. Well, 2 months later, it didn't go away. It would start bleeding at night, and he went to the doctor, and the doctor could actually see that they were air holes for the parasites. He had to have them surgically removed. Here is an example of what it looks like surgically removed.
Oh,
they can get up to 1 inch big. It has little thorns around it so that if you were trying to pull it out before it was ready, it'll hook itself into the skull. Yeah. So, that was our first parasite, the human botfly. Another parasite that I found very interesting was leishmaniasis. Like the previous parasite, it's also transferred to humans via a fly, but this parasite actually infects a human by going into the bloodstream. According to Dan Riskin, about 90% of the sandflies that carry this parasite are indigenous to Asia, and the remaining 10% live in South America and Mexico. This is leishmaniasis. It's a skin-eating parasite, is its other name. Here's a picture of why it's called that, or a few pictures. It actually, the fly, through the bite, the parasite comes in where the fly lands on you, or a mosquito, or through your pore, and it'll actually just start to eat away at your skin and make sores all over you. We actually recently had an outbreak in Dallas where people were just getting sores all over them and they couldn't figure out what it was. You might have heard of it. It was the skin-eating outbreak in Dallas. These sores can be treated with antiparasitical cream, or sometimes they'll have to be cut out if they're bad enough. the best way to avoid it is just to wear insect repellent when outdoors. So, the last two parasites that we've talked about were both caused by flies and carried by mosquitoes to a host. The third is also carried by mosquitoes, but it actually lives inside the mosquito itself. The next parasite is W. bancrofti, which causes lymphatic filariasis and sometimes even elephantiasis. If you look here, this is an example of elephantiasis. It's these are full of the roundworm that makes up W. bancrofti. When the mosquito bites the host, it's passed on. The body naturally sends white blood cells to try to fight this, and this parasite fights back, and it attacks the body's white blood cells, and it'll actually overtake them and continue to grow in them and overtake the lymphatic system. W. bancrofti can live in the body for decades, undetected. A case that it had on Monsters Inside Me, also, was a 60-year-old man named Tim Cartman. He contracted W. bancrofti 40 years prior to the symptoms of the parasite revealing itself. He obtained the parasite while serving in the Vietnam War, and after 40 years of unknowingly living with the parasite, the first symptom that Tim noticed was when he woke up in pain one night. He had a thick yellow discharge coming from the pores in both of his legs. He chose not to seek medical attention. After 2 years, the next symptom Tim encountered was elephantiasis, extreme swelling of his scrotum. This time, he did seek medical attention, and it was discovered that he had been carrying a parasite since he was 20 years old. DEC is the medication that had to be used to eradicate these parasites. Yeah. So, though all these parasites are different, each has a devastating effect on humans. From the maggots left by the human botfly and the sores left by leishmaniasis to the swelling left by W. bancrofti parasite, each individual case has its own impact on the lives of those infected. So, though it seems that most of these parasites are not indigenous to North America, there are still opportunities to contract harmful parasites. I've learned to be very wary of my surroundings and would be extremely cautious when traveling abroad. I hope that what we have discussed here today will inform you and give you a better understanding of how harmful parasites can be and also how easily they can be obtained. Does anyone have any questions?
Where exactly did you say that skin-eating parasite
Leishmaniasis?
Most commonly found?
It's 90% of the cases are found in Southeast Asia. The other 10% are South America and Mexico.
Thank God.
Anybody?
How big are the maggots when they pulled them out of his head?
They are up to an inch. Up to an inch, yeah. You can definitely see them. They're pretty big. Anybody else?
The bot flies, are they like the size of a normal housefly, or round about what size are they?
No, actually they're 2 times the size of a normal housefly. They're actually, you can tell by how big their larvae are when they're pulled out of the head. Double.
Is that actually how big it is that was pulled out of the head?
No, this isn't an actual. This is just a
Like a 25 times or something?
Yeah. And that's it.
Okay, excellent.